there's any question, this is the Metropolitan Council and the council meeting. And this afternoon, July 9th, we have a full agenda, but first, we have had a tradition of reading the Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement, and we have been sharing that task, not alphabetically, but going from east to west, and it is now Councilmember Lindstrom's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the 7-county region, is the ancestral homeland of the Dakota Iote, who are present and active contributors to our thriving region. As part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address the unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Iote. The Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Iote, the 11 federally recognized tribes in Minnesota, Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities, representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the 7-county region home.
Thank you so much. And now, a ceremony that we don't do every week or every month or sometimes every year, but I have the honor of having a swear-in ceremony with two separate swearing-ins. And I will ask Mark Jenkins to come forward, and I will come out with you. Let's go out. Sure.
Into the pit.
Yeah. All right, so you stand here facing the stadium.
Thank you.
And what I said we don't do this very often, it is one of the wonderful honors we have to be serving in Minnesota, to be serving the region, and we take our vows seriously, and I think it is one of the bedrocks of our democracy that we live in a rule of law and where we actually do make commitments to constitutions and both of the United States and the state of Minnesota. So, if you would be so pleased, Mark Jenkins, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm.
I do solemnly affirm.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
And the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
And I will faithfully discharge my duties.
And I will faithfully discharge my duties
as the District 12 representative of the Metropolitan Council.
as the District 12 representative of the Metropolitan Council.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations, Councilmember Jenkins. And then we're going to have a full picture. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'll call Victor Obishofin and invite as many guests as you'd like to join.
Take a picture first.
You just have to do the same thing. Okay.
So beautiful.
Beautiful. Wow.
I wore something. All right, Victor, Obishofin. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm.
I do solemnly affirm.
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
And I will faithfully discharge my duty
And I will faithfully discharge my duties
as the District 15 representative of the Metropolitan Council.
as the District 15 representative of the Metropolitan Council
To the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations, Councilmember.
Okay, smile. Thank you.
Great.
Council members, I will ask you to join us in the middle so we can take a group photo, please, council members. Yes, thank you. Air traffic controller, yes, exactly, thanks. Yeah, do we need to see Judy? Yeah. Make sure no badges, everything's hidden, okay?
The trick is for me to do this without having to stop playing. All right, for everyone. 3, 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
That's awesome.
It is kind of like musical chairs.
Have you checked my name?
Yes, and
I know we have 2 minutes.
yeah.
Let me blow. Ma'am, thank you so much. July.
Do we?
Well, that was very exciting.
Yeah.
Welcome new council members and welcome remaining existing council members. We have a full agenda of some business items and then an important information item. And unless there's objection, I will deem the agenda approved. We do have minutes that were sent in advance from our meeting on June 25th. So unless there's a correction, addition, question, I will entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So move. Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, those minutes are approved. Now, this is the time of the meeting where we invite interested persons who may be wishing to address the public on matters that are not on the agenda. And I've told former Councilmember Vento that she is welcome to speak, but she is not on the agenda. And but I think I'm so glad that she could be here today.
She asked for 12 minutes.
12, sorry. Tight rules here. But looking at Ginger, she says that we have nobody who's registered in advance, and unless I see anybody rush to the podium, we'll assume nobody is here for that. But we do have the consent business agenda, which includes one item. So if there's a motion and a second to approve the consent business item.
I make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That consent business item is approved. On to the non-consent business reports. There is one from Community Development. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Community Development Committee brings one business item forward for consideration this evening. It's business item 2025-161. It's the annual Metropolitan Regional Parks operation and maintenance allocation. So each year, the legislature appropriates funds to the city council to distribute to the 10 regional park implementing agencies to fund a portion of the actual operations and maintenance expenses for the system. Minnesota statute requires that by July 15th of each year, the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission reports to the council the funding requests from the implementing agencies based on the actual expenditures made in the previous year. Council staff and implementing agencies work together over many weeks to review and ensure the eligibility of the submitted expenses. For the state fiscal year 2026, the legislature appropriated a total of $11,740,000 from the state general and lottery in lieu of sales tax revenue funding. The total eligible expenses for the 10 implementing agencies was over $143 million. Table 1 in the business item details both the actual expenses and the estimated distribution amount, which is determined based on 3 factors directed in statute. First, use of each agency's regional parks and trails. Second, expenditures made by each agency. And third, total acreage of each agency's regional parks and trails. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council accept the Regional Parks and Trails System State Fiscal Year 2026 Operations and Maintenance Report as shown in Table 1 in the business item.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilmember Carter. Any discussion? No. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action is approved. There are no reports from the Environment Committee. There is one from the Management Committee. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is part of the work that we're doing at the council that makes improvements and advancements in tech support throughout the council in support of our mission and Imagine 2050. So I'm pleased to bring business item 2025-128, Grants Management Enterprise Software Contract 25P123. The council manages currently approximately 550 grant agreements totaling nearly $600 million. The current grants management system is outdated and lacks functionality to effectively manage the council's grant portfolio. A new modern grant system will enhance user experience for both internal stakeholders and external applicants and grantees. Benefits of this new system include automation of manual processes, simplifying and improving accessibility for external applicants, and allowing for more robust reporting and performance analytics. This request is for a 3-year term with 2 optional 1-year extensions for a total not to exceed $1.39 million. We had a great report on this today in the Management Committee, and it's going to do a lot, I think, not only internally, but with our external partners. We'll be getting data that is pulled into the system that we weren't able to integrate with PeopleSoft and other systems. So it really will help support not only Imagine 2050, but internally. We won't be doing a lot of those manual processes. So with that, Mr. Chair, I am pleased to move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 25P123 with Insight Public Sector and authorize software reseller on State of Minnesota's contract release S-10795 for Flux Labs Incorporated's grants management platform software in an amount not to exceed $1.39 million.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilmember Carter.
I just wanted to comment and thank the Management Committee for this report and for the item on our agenda, and at the same time recognize that while in our Community Development Committee last, it was mentioned the potential capabilities of a new management system, which we already had on the agenda and would be voting on today. And we were all just very, very pleased to know the capabilities that would assist us with assessment of work done, grants completed, in process, and help us to envision the future with data and analytics, such as you've said, and also give us the capacity to enhance applications with already available information so as to create better partnerships and relationships with our community. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff for bringing this forward. Thank you to Management Committee for the review and bringing this item forward here today. I am so looking forward to what a new grants management system will do for us as we partner with our communities into the future. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all.
Thank you, Councilmember, for highlighting the importance of that action. Councilmember Johnson?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Councilmember Carter. It's rolling out in community development, but also in MTS, and I know that those teams were very involved in vetting and testing out the systems as part of the process. And I want to thank Ms. Hauge and Ms. Giesel for their presentation today, and thank Councilmember Lilligren for his remarks on the impacts it will have for CD and throughout the region. So this is really good for the council, but it's great for the region.
Great, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action is approved. On to the Transportation Committee. And I understand Councilmember Chambliss are advancing these items?
Yes, I'll be advancing as I chaired the items in the Transportation Committee in Deb Barber's absence. And there are
Her
two.
absence from the committee meeting, not.
Yes,
The
from
real
the
Deb
committee
Barber
meeting
here
when we-
today.
Yeah, on the Transportation
Not
Committee
AI.
meeting. Transportation has two business items. The first item is 2025-143. Mr. Chair and council members, business item 2025-143 is for the purchase of 128 biodiesel 40-foot transit buses. The purchase of 128 biodiesel buses from Gillig LLC, exercising purchase options utilizing the State of Washington State Master Contract, is FTA compliant and provides competitive pricing. A large portion of the active fleet is either over or nearing bus useful life thresholds, or 12 years or 500,000 miles as defined by FTA for 40-foot heavy-duty transit buses. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to exercise bus purchase options utilizing the State of Washington's Master Contract 06719-01 with Gillig LLC to purchase 128 40-foot buses for the council's regular route services in an amount not to exceed $122,085,767.45.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I will say, as a genetic bus guy, that when we are able to procure these many buses, which are so important, it's kind of renewing our fleet. And the fact that we are actually being able to use another state, another region's RFP process, we ensure we have value and it's FTA approved, and it's kind of helpful that we have these relationships around the country, and the state of Washington is one that allows us to get 122 of their allocated buses under that RFP, so that's helpful and a usual process. And with that, not hearing any further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is affirmed. Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. Business item number 2025-145 proposes that the Metropolitan Council take the following actions related to the Metro Green Line Extension Project: to approve the purchase of non-revenue vehicles and equipment at a cost of up to $10 million using funds already contained in the Green Line Extension Project budget; In summary, as a part of the broader effort to bring the rail line into operation and support its ongoing functionality, specialized vehicles and equipment are required. This request includes 71 vehicles and 73 pieces of equipment to support the needs of the engineering and facilities, LRV maintenance, materials management, rail operations, and rail systems maintenance work groups. Purchases will be prioritized based on lead times and departmental needs to support operations. Likely, multiple contract initiation memos will result. And pending approval, this business item will be attached to multiple contract initiation memos in the future for reference. The cost for these purchases is a Green Line Extension Project eligible cost, and funds for these purchases are contained within the Green Line Extension Project 61001, account 77060. The Green Line Extension Project is included in the capital investment plan. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council take the following actions related to the Metro Green Line Extension Project and approve the purchase of non-revenue vehicles and equipment at a cost of up to $10 million using funds already contained in the Green Line Extension Project budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That contract is approved. Thank you. There are no joint reports. There is one other business item, 2025-59, which is the ratification of committee assignments. This is something we do usually once a year. We consider shifts within committees, and as much we have two new council members. Most of these changes are really assigning Councilmember Jenkins to the Environment Committee and the Management Committee, and Councilmember Obishakin to the Community Development and Transportation Committees. There's a few other items, including their appointments to the Audit Committee. So I appreciate everybody's interest, and especially the new council members coming to those committees. Those members who are on those committees, you can be very kind and in your orientation, and I know the committee chairs will be very open and interested in your participation. So with that, I would entertain a motion and a second to ratify those committee assignments.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any discussion? Any debate? I'm happy to talk about it. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you so much. Those committee assignments are ratified. We are on to our information item, and that is the 2025 disparity study that has been undertaken by Keene Independent Research. And I think, Ashanti, are you going to do any introduction? If not,
I can do a quick.
Ryan, jump in.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. As Blanca gets set up, I'll just start with a brief introduction. And we do have Dave as well joining us on the screen. I can see he's up. For council members who have been a part of the EAC, the Equity Action Circle, or the Management Committee, there's like multiple different studies that have been going on in the organization. So I want to kind of start with that level set, because we're going to focus today first on Keene's work with multiple public sector entities as a part of the formal update to the disparity study for participating subdivisions of the state, which unlock particular procurement opportunities and tools under statute. And as a part of that, you do a disparity study. And I know Keene's been doing the rounds to different jurisdictions, sharing different parts of that analysis. You'll hear that today. There's also been a small business equity analysis done within the council's work on a similar timeline that is similar to and related, but not overlapping in terms of its analysis. That looks a little bit more at things unique to the council's programs. What can we do? Where is there opportunity? We've received feedback through those presentations. Ashanti's been a part of those, along with the entire OEO team. We're not going to present specifically on that piece today, but as we get into the small business program part, the second part of this presentation, and Ashanti comes up, that is really a moment where we're bringing together what we have learned through the small business equity analysis work generally with the disparity study work from Keene. So we're not running multiple sets of recommendations on move forward plans. And so at different points, you've all given input to this small business equity analysis piece. And we appreciate that input. It's helped to shape some of our key priorities coming forward. You have not seen the Keene update yet on the disparity study. You'll see that today. Much of it, we believe, looks similar. But what I really want to bring confidence to is in the go forward plans for implementation, we want to move from two sets of data into one thing telling us the same thing with an action plan for where we go next. And we'll finish with that with Ashanti and I after the main presentation today.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Blanca and Dave.
Hey, thank you so much. I think someone will put the presentation up.
Yeah, Greg will do it on the back end.
Great. So we're ready to start? I do not. No, it's a different remote. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Somebody
That's
will.
okay. I can see that Jason and Greg are doing that.
There it is.
There it is.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Blanca Montero. I'm a senior consultant with Keene Independent. And 2 seconds ago, we had David Keene, Principal Keene Independent, also joining us. So thank you so much. We are here to present results from the 2025 Minnesota Disparity Study. This was a joint effort of 16 entities, different state entities and cities and counties participating in it. This is the second time that Metropolitan Council participate in the disparity study. Keene Independent was able to conduct the 2017 disparity study where 9 entities participated at the time, and now we have 16 as more information collected from all entities. Today we're going to present results for Metropolitan Council, also joint results for the 16 entities combined, conclusions and recommendations. I speak really fast, so please stop at any time that you don't understand me, and also I have a heavy accent, so please no worries. Stop me at any question, at any time for any question. Okay, today we're going to talk about data collection, utilization results, availability, conclusions and recommendations. Let me introduce Keene Independent. Keene Independent Research is a 28-person economic consulting firm with staff around the country. Myself, I'm based in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm a user of Met Council services, so I'm really happy to be here. We have substantial experience conducting disparity studies. We have conducted disparity studies in almost every state in the country and for many other cities and other entities. We have expert witness experience. Dave has expert witness experience, and I have assisted in different cases too, including in.1 and mean.1 too. Okay, and we didn't conduct this alone. We have an excellent subconsultant team. We have Keith Weiner of Holland & Knight. He developed the legal framework. Holland & Knight also participated in 2017 disparity study and also been working with Keene Independent for the last 10, 15 years. Also, we have Customer Research International, who conducted the availability survey. They also participated in the 2017 disparity study and also been a long-time collaborators. And finally, we have Suzanne Donaldson of Donaldson Consulting, who assisted with in-depth interviews. Disparity study is not only about researching numbers, but it's also about talking with the community, listening to them, and she helped us with that. Okay, Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot for this next slide. Why perform a disparity study?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Great. So this helps you understand equity in procurement for your own locally funded contracts. We are not looking at your federally funded contracts here or your federal programs because those are authorized separately. And so you have had the MCUB program in place. It's a requirement under the law to regularly consider whether that program is needed and whether they're, but for the program, there would be disparities for particular groups of business owners and whether you have the right tools and whether they're working. So these disparity studies were developed after a Supreme Court decision that I'll talk to you in the next slide about. You need to have the types of information developed in a disparity study to make the right decisions about any type of equity program that might consider the race of the business owner or the gender of the business owner. So this is a very deliberate process where we're presenting information to you today. Of course, key independent is not the decision makers, but we know the types of information that you need and the courts would look at if your MCUB program were ever challenged in court.
Dave, this
And do you, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, Dave, it's about legal framework. You want to discuss this as well?
Okay, yeah, there's just a lag in the slides. So as I mentioned, the Supreme Court set the strict scrutiny standard of legal review for race-conscious programs. It considered the City of Richmond's minority business program. That decision came down in 1989. And the short story is we really understand the strict scrutiny standard of review set by the court. We have many court decisions since then. The other key point here, it has not changed since 1989. There's a lot of noise out at the moment that the whole legal landscape has changed around equity programs. As far as the courts are concerned, it has not. Let me hand it back to Blanca.
That's great. Thank you. Disparity study is comparing utilization, is the share of contract dollars going to different firms with what would have been the availability based on availability of businesses. Let's talk first about utilization. We were able to collect contract awarded and spent on Met Council contracts from July 2016 to June 2023. We collected prime and subcontracts. And we analyzed what was the percentage of contract dollars going per race and gender group. Here we see that from July 2016 to June 2023, about 9% of contract dollars went to MBEs, WBEs. For MBEs, for minority-owned businesses, they receive about $52 million or 5% of contract dollars. And for white women-owned firms, they receive about $38 million or 3.82% of contract dollars. That's on your table on your left. The table on your right is just descriptive statistics about what was the percentage of contract dollars going to different groups. The first thing that we want to say is that about 63% of contract dollars went to small businesses. These are certified and non-certified businesses. We just categorize these based on the Small Business Administration standards. In comparison, we have 4% of contract dollars went to firms eligible to the MCUB program. These are firms that were with the certifications accepted by the Met Council. Okay. This next slide shows results from the last disparity study and the 2023 disparity study. In 2017, we estimated that 6% of contract dollars went to MBEs and WBEs, and this year, for this study, we estimated that 9% of contract dollars went to MBEs and WBEs. We saw an increase of contract dollars going to all MBEs, WBEs, except for Hispanic American-owned firms. We did also this utilization analysis, this share of contract dollars going to MBEs, WBEs per year, per fiscal year. We see that there was an increase on and the share of contract dollars going to MBEs, WBEs from 2017 to 2020. And we saw a drop in 2021, 2022. We may think that this could be caused by COVID in these years. Okay, as I was saying, a disparity study is comparing utilization and availability. We wanted to know which firms were available to conduct businesses for Met Council and the other 15 participating entities. What we did was to conduct an availability survey. The first step was to create an availability list. For that, we asked each entity to provide us with a list of interested firms. A list of interested firms are those firms that want to get business with the entities, even if they haven't been awarded a contract. We complemented that list with information from Dun & Bradstreet. We obtained lists of firms from Dun & Bradstreet with the types of work relevant to the 16 entities and also in the relevant geographic market area. In total, we attempted to contact about 76,000 businesses. Customer Research International called those firms. There were about 5 attempts to contact them. Also, firms were able to complete the availability survey online. And we were able to, at the end, we were able to successfully contact 33% of the firms with a working number. Okay, this is our headcount availability. The availability survey processes that we call them, if that firms were located in Minnesota, they were qualified and interested in conducting work with the participating entities, and for profit, they were included in our availability database. About 5,000 firms were included in the availability database. That is a comparable number as the 2017 disparity study. 35% of those firms in our availability database were minority or women-owned firms. Okay, and that's just our first step on how to calculate an availability benchmark, on how to compare utilization and availability. Our next step was to do a contract by contract. I know if this is going to work. Sorry. Can I?
To go back.
No?
We might have to use the mouse or the keyboard.
I can do that. No problem. There you go. Let's do this. Okay. So I was describing, we have our next step to create an availability benchmark was to do a contract-by-contract analysis. What we did was for each of the prime contract and subcontract collected, we identify how many firms could conduct that type of contract. Now, if we say how many firms can conduct a contract that was a certain amount for that type of work from that year, and also if there was a prime subcontract or a subcontractor, and then we weighted by the amount of that contract, and we get a weighted availability. Using this methodology, we were able to estimate that about 13% of contract dollars would have gone to MBEs, WBEs, if there was a level playing field. I hope I didn't skip any slide here. Okay, I think not. Here we are comparing utilization to your left and weighted availability to your right. To your left is the first table that I showed you. It's 9%, about 9% of contract dollars went to MBEs, WBEs. That it's below where we have expected based on our availability benchmark of 13%. One is parity. We would expect that these two pie charts will look similar, but there is a difference. Let me show you these on a table and a disparity index that maybe will be easier to understand. We are showing here utilization and availability. We're using these two metrics to calculate a disparity index, utilization divided by availability times 100. If it's equal to 100, we mean that it's parity, utilization equal to availability. Courts have said that a disparity index below 80, that is a substantial disparity. Here we found for Met Council that for MBEs, WBEs, was combined, there was there was a substantial disparity with a disparity index of 68. We also found that substantial disparity means utilization was substantially below estimated availability for white women. We found a parity for MBEs together. There were some groups that with a substantial disparity, Black American-owned firms, Hispanic American-owned firms, and American Indian-owned firms show a substantial disparity. Okay, moving. We did this same analysis by industry and by size of contract. Here by industry, you will see that we found a substantial disparity on goods, the goods industry, and goods industry include petroleum and oil and other services. We found also disparities for professional services and for professional services. You will have results in detail by race and gender in the disparity study and in the report. Yes.
Blanca, just before you leave this slide,
please.
As I connect this presentation to the next one, I would say the two center bars on here as we worked to figure out, so where are the areas that we're most interested in moving the needle, where we're seeing the largest gaps. Goods and services, particularly in the areas where we have more discretionary spend, becomes areas of needed focus. And so I just want to highlight that now as a data point of one of the many that we're looking at closely as we move ahead.
That's great. Thank
you.
Yes.
Yeah, Councilor
I just wanted clarification on the construction utilization where there was 17% that was higher, higher. It's kind of the reverse of the other numbers, so I wanted to know why that is, where you have the MBE in the purple.
Yeah. Met Council has what we think a really successful program, MCOF program, and we think that this higher utilization of firms and construction is because of that, the participation that has been increased due to the program. Okay. And we see these results for primes and subcontractors.
Mr. Chair, can I add one thing to that too?
Yeah.
Councilor Chambliss, just one other point I would add from our perspective, and this, relationships and who you work with on repeat bases matter a great deal. And in the construction field, this organization is clearly more mature, both because of the program and the relationships that get built up along the way than we see in the goods and services area. And that's partly when we talk about behaviorally where we have a need for focus. We need to build the same level of history and repeat relationships and successes as we do in construction across goods and services as well.
Makes sense. And then this is from 2017 through 2023. So if we do another survey, I don't know if it'll be in 5 years, 10 years, then we'll be able to see the trend.
Councilmember Chambliss, the short answer is the disparity study lasts for a specific period of time. So they do them on every...
We suggest to do it every 5 years.
Thank
the
you.
state of Minnesota, I think, took 8 years to do it, but we would suggest doing analysis at every 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councilor
Briefly,
Johnson.
and not to go deep, and I might be off base. So just also understanding ownership of these companies with private equity coming in, and you see more and more of buying up professional services or construction firms or the things that do you know if that is impacting how then people are able to get into our system if they're minority or women owned, if those acquisitions that are, maybe buying up some of the services we're trying to use, is that?
Oh, I think I follow what you're saying.
Yeah.
We, ownership for us, if the firm was 51% or more owned by a certain group, that will be classified in that way. If it's a joint venture, for example, or was acquired, we would that go by majority owned. If it was acquired by a white male owned firm, or so.
Let me jump in as well. This is
Yeah,
Dave
thank
Keene,
you.
if you can hear me. The overall trend, especially say engineering firms and just the consolidation in the industry, we've been seeing that going on for a number of industries for some time. Even with that, we found that a greater share of the firms in our availability database in 2025 were minority owned than we found in 2017. So availability, especially for minority owned firms, in spite of all the challenges with COVID that had a disproportionate impact on businesses owned by people of color, that seems to be growing in Minnesota. That's something that, to celebrate. We also know that the business failure rate for minority-owned firms is higher than for white male-owned firms in Minnesota. We did that analysis this year. So even in spite of all those trends, you have more minority-owned firms that are available as a share of the total today than you did 8 years ago. And I think it's programs like the MCO program, the efforts that people like the staff of Met Council are doing, that's a part of that story, and we hear that when we go out in the community and ask people. So it's very complicated, and there are a lot of headwinds, but that was what the data were telling us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's very helpful. Thank you for that explanation. And I'm just going to channel Councilmember Cedarberg briefly since she's not here. I'll ask her forgiveness if I don't get it right. But on Management Committee, we all care deeply about this on management and want to thank Ashanti and the whole leadership team when they bring us updates on what we're doing. If you want to visit a Management Committee meeting when we talk about these things, it's fascinating. But also, Councilmember Cedarberg will often just say, too, it's about those relationships, those long relationships that have been worked on and curated and cultured over many, many years. And so helping those new contractors that are coming into Met Council not have a disadvantage because they don't know the rules or maybe how to do it as succinctly or as quickly or easily as others. I think that's getting people to our front door, opening those doors and getting them in and getting them comfortable. And I'm looking at our team because we hold workshops and they're doing great work, but also just building those relationships, I think, as was mentioned, so that they feel confident and can put forward those really good proposals so that when we're scoring and reviewing, they can win them too. So
Yeah, I'm really glad you made that point because we've had contractors here a number of years ago talked about the challenges of the public sector, like Met Council, versus working for a private industry. It's much more challenging, but once you figure it out, it's better.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that was one of the findings that we found about firms discussing the challenges of completing an RFP and getting feedback on that. We have an extensive Appendix J with those kind of comments, and also on the summary report that can just echo what we just described. Okay, next slide show this utilization and availability by, by size of contract, and I cannot see that. Well, I'll just describe by size of contract. We just saw a larger participation of MBEs and WBEs on contracts up to 100,000 and between 100,000 and 500,000. But that participation was below what the expected availability. So there's work to do too on the size of contracts. This slide shows utilization and disparity indices for the 16 participating entities, and I will have Dave to describe it.
Yes, so in the top half of the table where we have the results from Met Council, those are the entities that also participated in the 2017 study, so we can compare the fiscal years included in the 2017 study with those in the 2025 study. You look at percent of contract dollars going to minority-owned businesses, which is MBE, and white women-owned firms, which is WBE, including non-certified firms. Total means MBE, WBE combined. You'll see those results there. So just looking at that middle column, Met Council really falls in the middle based on percentage of dollars going to minority and women-owned firms, but compared to those entities without a program at all, which are Hennepin Healthcare, City of Rochester, City of Brooklyn Park, City of Bloomington, very small participation of minority and women-owned firms for those entities without programs. But for your program, we don't think you would be, we think you would be in that range, not in the 9-10% range. It's interesting to look at the disparity indices, which are on the right-hand side, because that controls for different entities buying different types of work, having contracts of different sizes, because you don't look like Ramsey County or Hennepin County or the city of Minneapolis or the city of St. Paul in all of your purchases combined. Maybe a portion of those look similar, but overall they don't. And the whole idea behind Met Council is it's things that other cities and counties then won't have to do. So when we control for the mix of work, your disparity index overall of 68 is at the high range. It's still a substantial disparity, but it's still in the range of some of the more successful programs in the community. And the 102 for minority-owned businesses, which indicates parity overall, not for every minority business group, but overall for MBEs. We didn't see that for anybody else other than for Hennepin County. So that puts you in context, and it lets you answer the question, but for the MCUB program, everything that you've been doing, what would there be disparities in your contracts? And we think the answer is clearly yes. And it's support for continuing those efforts rather than abandoning those efforts. So there's far more information in the report about this analysis. I did want to point out that Hennepin County was about the same level of what you're at now in the 2017 study. They were about 10.6% of their contract dollars going to minority and women-owned firms. They doubled that since the 2017 study, and that was intentional. That took a lot of effort. It took going to state legislature to get some additional tools. They can go up to $500,000 for sheltered market contracts, for example. They implemented minority and women business elements to their small business program and staffed up and made it a focus. That's what it takes to go from 10.6%, about what you're at now, to 22.8%, which is what they were able to achieve. And overall, they're at parity. They're still lagging in their utilization of white women-owned firms, just as you are. But that's just shows you that there are still more tools and more opportunities to improve upon what you're doing and not stand still. Even though compared to your availability benchmarks, especially for minority-owned firms, you're doing quite well now. Back to you, Blanca.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And so to jump onto Dave's points, Councilmember Lilligren and I were making eyes. So he was going to ask about Hennepin, and I want to tie this back now to the other small business equity analysis piece as well, because, and Dave did a great job how he just set it up. So when we look at our small business equity audit, there are recommendations from places all over the country about ways we could improve. And then we got our disparities study back, and there are examples close to home on how we can improve, where the law is more similar than some of the other places in other spots. So if you ask, how do we take all the different recommendations and end up at the ones you're going to look at next today with Ashanti? We had a meeting where we came in and I said, Ashanti, I want you to pull away everything that's not from Minnesota for a second. I want to ask the frank question of, how do we take the things that Hennepin County is doing really well right now? Like, what are they doing that we are not doing that brought them from a 60 to 102? Recognizing we're not totally the same entities, there are different purchases, all that. There are clearly intentional steps they took. And I want to give OEO a lot of credit for helping distill some of the steps that they have taken over the past 5 years that would be good things for us to learn from. And you'll see that embedded in the recommendations we make on the small business program side as we get into that a little bit later today.
Thank you.
Let me show you the combined utilization availability to combine of the 16 participating entities. Combined combined 9% of contract dollars went to MBE, WBE, that is substantially below what we have expected. Based on availability analysis, is 22%. This is for the 16 entities combined. For the 16 entities combined, we found substantial disparities for each race and gender group. Okay. The disparity study was not only availability and utilization. We also had the opportunity to ask in that availability survey, we asked firms about their experiences in the marketplace, what barriers did they face. And one of the questions is if they had any difficulties obtaining lines of credits or loans. Here we found that 56% of minority-owned businesses said yes, they had difficulties obtaining those credits. That's compared to only 12% majority-owned firms that said that they had difficulties obtaining credits. We know access to capital is critical for starting up a business or growing that business. And we see these results and also other marketplace information that confirm these findings. I know I'll make it. Okay, I don't know. So we have it here. Well, I want to talk about data collection and anecdotal data collection. As I said, we reached out to the community. We received more than 2,000 comments through the availability survey and through interviews with trade associations and businesses. Here are the topics that were more relevant or that we identify from those conversations. As described, challenge access to capital was one of those. Good old boy networks, not being able to get on the door with a prime or a subcontractor. Prompt payment, we know that's also a problem. Lack of feedback.
By prompt payment, you mean it's not prompt?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's the problem.
Just clarify.
We're not paying them too fast.
Okay. And lack of feedback on submitted bids. And also, returning to the main point, also that it's really complicated to submit an RFP for state agencies. So that was one of the findings. And lack of feedback doesn't make it easier. We have an Appendix J in the report that I would suggest you read it. It's really good. And also we have a summary in the summary report with quotes, non-identified quotes for each of these topics. Dave, I'll let you with conclusions and recommendations.
Yeah, and real quick, thank you for giving us extra time probably. So the MCUP program has many of the tools that say any of the entities, including Hennepin County, has. I think the sum of this is there's opportunities to do more with the tools that you have and apply them across your different areas of contracting. So you did increase your participation of minority women-owned firms since our last study. Given the availability in the market, and that's different for you all, that weighted availability figure is different because of your mix of purchases. It's simply harder to get small business participation and minority women business participation in your contracts. But you, on the small business side, you've done exceptionally well. 62% of your contract dollars going to small businesses. Blanca, you can fact check that. I think that's right. Good.
Yep.
So just not enough of that is going to, small minority women-owned firms, particularly women-owned firms, is where we found the disparities. But for the MCUB program and all the efforts you're doing, we think the evidence, the discrimination that we found evidence for in the marketplace presents such a barrier and puts firms at a disadvantage in competing for public sector contracts that, but for the MCUB program and other things you're doing, you would have substantial disparities too. We found about 1% of the total contract dollars for the entities without programs were going to minority women-owned firms. Let's go to the recommendations.
Okay.
By the way, room for improvement is the other part of the conclusions. So the recommendations, we broke this down into 6 areas of recommendations for each one of the entities, and then fine-tuned it for you and the others. So I'm not seeing the recommendations page
sorry.
yet. Sorry.
Okay. There.
You might want to use the keyboard. It's easier.
I'm using it. So sorry. There you
Well,
go.
let me start on that. There we go.
Yeah.
So think about this. Looking at the first recommendation, think about what you're doing as opening opportunities for small businesses with all the benefits to the community that come with that. Economic development benefits, diversifying your vendor base and ensuring there's future bidders for your projects, local employment opportunities, all of that. That's just great. That's kind of mom and apple pie. And some entities stop there. You haven't, but some have. And we think that's a great component of what you ought to be doing. So I'm glad you have a parallel analysis of small business efforts and even more to do there. Your remedial actions to address the effects of discrimination, it's unfortunate that those programs are needed. It's fortunate that you have the strength to do that. And that's really supplements and goes beyond the small business efforts. And you ought to be thinking about those two things as complementary but different. And the remedial program is where the legal challenges could come. And you need to be very strategic in how you're using any kind of minority and women business programs, only using those where they're necessary. So small business, mom and apple pie, you can defend that if anybody challenged that in court. We think the remedial actions to address the effects of discrimination, that's a bit more grim. I mean, that's what you hope to not have to do, but we think you do and continue to do that. And that's to be used where necessary, and have the metrics, which is recommendation number 2, including data on non-certified firms, which most small businesses are not certified, and many minority women-owned firms, probably the majority of minority women-owned firms working with you are also not certified. So keeping track of that, you need to have good metrics on your success. You have tools, you need to use them in a stronger way and be more aggressive with them, as well as looking at maybe what some of the other entities around the country are doing, or what locally you're doing, especially in the small business side. So we have some specific recommendations for improvements. And then recommendation number 4 is really having the right certifications to address your objectives. Let me get on my soapbox for one of those. We think the path to certification for a firm that isn't a Black American, Asian Pacific American, South Asian American, Hispanic American, or American Indian-owned firm. There are other firms owned by people of color in Minnesota, and there are other disadvantaged groups than the minority and women-owned firms the certifications that you recognize right now. So if you're a person from descent from the Middle East or North Africa, this path to certification in Minnesota is much more difficult. We think you can make that easier and certify as a region or as a state, certify those firms looking at the individual circumstances and experiences, making a determination if they're socially and economically disadvantaged. Same thing for LGBTQ owned firms. Same thing for firms owned by persons with disabilities, especially those that don't fit the state definition of what that is, which is very, very limited and really doesn't recognize most businesses owned by persons with disabilities. Those are just examples of where somebody might be socially and economically disadvantaged based on their their personal characteristics. And certification and participation is very limited opportunities to do that. And really, making that a focus so you're very inclusive in these programs of those that might be socially and economically disadvantaged. Met Council is a part of the solution. We're not saying that you are the solution. This should be a regional effort or a statewide effort. But please consider what we have produced in the report, especially for the groups that I just mentioned. There's information in supplemental reports as well that we produced as part of the study, Task 2.7 report that's available to you. Moving on to recommendation number 5, which is continuing to flexibly operate programs. On one day, a small business program, a small business contract goals, for example, might be the ticket, and another day, another type of contract, you're going to need MBE, WBE type of a program. And knowing that you have that flexibility, that it's not rigid, that's the best way to have maximum impact and maximum legal defensibility. I think one thing to look at Hennepin County is that flexibility in the tools that they use in using both small business and MBE, WBE type tools. And then you need the resources to effectively operate the program. One of the reasons that Hennepin County wasn't doing any better than what they were doing in the 2017 results was they later found out that they hadn't effectively staffed it. At least that's my judgment. And once they had and made it a organization-wide focus and not just, hey, well, that's that person in that one room, but anybody that is involved in any way in procurement and contracting and supporting that effort really has that commitment to equity in the outcomes for the organization. So Blanca, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Last slide is just where we are on the study. Department of Administration released draft final reports for each of the entities. Those are available on the study website. We are receiving comments from the public. We just had our 4th and final public virtual meeting this morning, and we're still receiving comments from the public. So please let your contacts, your networks know that they can review it, provide comments. We will review those and provide final reports by the end of the month. And I'll stop here if you have any other further questions. And thank you so much. It's been a really pleasure working with Met Council this time too. And looking forward for your comments and questions.
Thank you so much. Questions? Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify some of the suggestions.
Sure.
Just going to the page here. So for the availability constraints of the disadvantaged business enterprise, the DBEs, and the minority business enterprises, were there issues? I just wanted to clarify on page 12, it talks about the size of the contract, type of work, location, the contractor role, whether they were a prime or a subcontractor. I wasn't quite sure how those components affected availability.
Oh, we use those characteristics to know how many firms can conduct that type of contract. So let's say Met Council. Met Council has a contract for security. I'm just making up. It's a prime contract for security. So we wanted to know how many firms in our availability database can conduct a contract for security services for an amount of $10,000, for example, that awarded in a given year, let's say 2020. So we wanted to know if the firm was open, was in business at that time. And we use those characteristics of the contract. We use those characteristics of the contract to match it with our availability database and see how many total businesses can do that work and how many of those were MBEs and WBEs. This is a contract-by-contract analysis that we do to create an availability benchmark at the end so we can compare utilization and availability.
Okay, thank you. And I had another question.
Sure.
And that is after securing the contract, and I see some really good information from the surveys of the anecdotal data that was collected
Yeah.
in terms of the challenges with access to capital and these other challenges that these businesses have. I met with the CEO, Warren McLean of Northside Economic Opportunity Network, and Chair Zelli was also participating. And one of the challenges that they said was just having the availability of cash flow to sustain their business throughout the cycle of the contract. And
Capital, yeah.
yeah, to sustain the capital funds that they need to conduct their business and stay in business. And he suggested that we look at the payments of the prime contractors to the subcontractors, because a lot of our small businesses are subcontractors. And they have challenges too. So I know we haven't gotten it down to that granular level, but I think that is also important because those are part of our numbers. And suggested that we look into how the subcontractors are paid by the primes and making it easier, like through automated payments. And he presented a guidebook. And so those are things that Met Council has been looking at. And I think this information and this survey is going to help us to get to that baseline. I think you said it was 13%?
Yeah, that is the weighted availability. Yeah, that's what we have expected. MBEs, WBEs to obtain in a level playing field. Yeah,
Okay.
13%, and it's only 9% now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
To you?
Councilmember Pacheco.
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment, and I read the surveys that we had here, and I've looked at this as well now, and it's very good. One thing, though, in working with some of my members, the Latino Chamber, is that it's how it's communicated. They believe that they can compete if there's an opportunity, but they don't like to be viewed as a victim. You know, I'm part of a gap. I'm part of something that's a problem, and they want to kind of put that aside and say, I want to do the job, but I don't want to be defined as this victim in this race to get here to here to here. And I don't know how we do that, how we communicate with folks along that line, and it may be different culturally, but I think that there's something there, and you can see even now as we all look at the challenges to D&I or diversity, people getting rid of the first part of the diversity and changing it to small business or changing it to something else. So we know communication works in all of this, and we just have to define how we use it and how effective we can use it in these communities, because it is a problem. I mean, you know, there's a lot of pride in your business, and if you think the only time they're inviting you in is when they're trying to fill the gap, it's not helpful.
No, and we hear you on that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just one last comment on that. The disparity study statutorily kind of exists in a space where we need to study it that way. But to your point, the language only needs to exist as a study under the statute to unlock the tools we have. What we do with the language, what we call our programs, how we talk about them as we leave the study piece and think about where we go, every one of those points can stand on its own, and we should think deeply about that.
Yeah, and maybe Dave wants to talk more about it, but that's one of the first recommendation is how you talk about these programs. Yeah. These are not diversity programs. These are to remedy discrimination. These are small business programs that can help all businesses, and you will use a race-conscious part to remedy, identify discrimination.
Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for this presentation and this work. This is just really amazing, really enlightening. It's encouraging to see the progress that we have made. I really value Councilmember Johnson's leadership from the management committee where we dig into some of this work. I'm very much looking forward to the recommendations and implementation presentation by Ashanti and the regional administrator. But this is a comment more than a question. But you look at Hennepin County's tremendous progress, right? And I think we can learn a lot from that. But as David Keene was presenting the recommendations, and even before that actually, but I feel like a lot of the progress that we have made here, and I expect the progress that we will make in the future, there's a lot that emphasizes leadership, and that's not really referenced in the recommendation overview that David Keene presented, but to me it's a through line, right? This will only work if we and all of the leadership within this organization are committed to it, that we're monitoring it, we're emphasizing it, we're talking about it, we're saying it. And so again, as I looked at the recommendations and the implementation piece, it's gonna matter what happens in this chambers, in our committees, and at the leadership within our departments. So, yeah, thank you.
Great point. Goes beyond any number or technique. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. I really appreciate this presentation and the discoveries that are being brought forth for us as we look toward moving forward in the Met Council to enhance our programs and the utilization that we see. I also just wanted to comment that I am not really certain how scientific this whole concept of utilization, weighted availability against utilization is. I do know that we're assessing capacity to conduct the kind of business and contracts that the Metropolitan Council has, and I realize there's a science applied there. But as I look at this circle of what happens first, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, I always want to ask, how do we help with that capacity development? And I'm very thankful for the work that I hear about coming from our team as they look to opportunities for training and are doing that work on a regular basis and partnering organizations together, contractors and subs, so that we are able to get new firms into this work, because I believe we're driving that greater weighting as we bring people in. Again, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? We're only going to increase that availability as we increase our utilization. And I look forward to the utilization increasing and also that weighted availability increasing. So I just wanted to make that comment and to thank our staff for the connections they are already making. As we hear about the work that's being done with the small business study, on the work that's being done in MCUP, and how, in fact, as we've heard in our Equity Action Committee, Equity Advisory Committee, how they are actually beginning to weave together what they're hearing. And they didn't give us the full, presentation. They didn't have that for us, of course, of what the disparity study is showing. But the readiness to uptake these recommendations, at a staff level and here at this table is very, very great. And I'm looking forward to those next conversations that we will have about legislation, and how we change our programs so that we can drive this work. Thank you very much to all who are doing it, and to this team around the table for the support of this work ongoing.
Any questions? All right, thank you so much for your presentation. Do you have a?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll invite Ashanti up to join us for the second presentation that I think will get uploaded on the screen, the small business program. So I already did the intro before the first part. The goal of our presentation and recommended steps here, there was something like 50 different recommendations issued across the small business equity audit, not to include any of what you just saw from the Keene report. There's lots of recommendations. And focus would be the piece I would add maybe to Councilmember Lilligren's comment on leadership. I think also being clear on what you can do so you make progress as opposed to admire 57 steps would be one other piece that I would suggest is, I feel, important for us to at least be wrestling with as we go. And so this is not meant to be the list that moves you to full parity. It's not meant to be the end of a journey that we are on. It's meant to be the steps that are in front of us right now from some things where getting to really work with Ashanti and team saying, what are the things we're most missing on in the near term that's like right in front of us? I also want to give credit that our legislative team and Jody and Sai and Ashanti all worked on a legislative change this year that we got through legislation. You'll see that in here. So we did take some steps in some important ways to continue to work at the statutory level as well. All of the things in here have been reviewed and vetted already up through the cabinet before it brought it here. So this is not where we're starting and saying we haven't thought about these things or we're waiting until that. We want to actually say there are actionable steps here we want to begin to move on and hear your reactions to, but also where we can bring that as we go to continue to check in. And I appreciate Ashanti walking through the 5 multi-step recommendations here today.
Thank you. Chair Zelli, Council members Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And thank you for this opportunity to walk you through some of these steps. These 5 multi-layered steps. Can't get anything past Ryan. But really overall, I just want to say that we have information, very valuable information from the Keene Disparity Study, the Small Business Equity Audit, and other various anecdotal and resources that we've been able to glean to come up with these 5 recommendations. It not only tells us where we have disparities, but where we're doing well. And I think one of the things that we can definitely be proud about, brag about, even with Hennepin County, is what we're doing in our small business programs and our MCUB programs. I think Blanca or Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think of all the entities, we were the strongest in that area. So I'm going to walk through these, and I'm starting with this one because it really encompasses a lot of what we talked about. And relative to planning, utilization of the tools, both statutory and policy-wise. Ryan just mentioned we do not have to go to the legislature. We have some authority, and even with the cap that we have here, 175,000, that is within our control to remove that cap. Hennepin County had to go to the legislature. Again, we do not. But really having some planning around the tools we have and measuring it, a lot of what you heard Blanca and others talking about, and really implementing some of those tools.
As you leave this slide, Ashanti, I would just add from a readiness, I'll try and give you some readiness assessments in real time as we go as well. This is in final review with our general counsel right now. This policy's been in the works for well over a year. It's gone through multiple iterations because it's important to get the draft elements right and make sure it's both policy but also procedural. How do you use tools available? How do you set this up? There's been conversation happening at management committee at various points along the way about all of this, I know. And so there's final review going on the legal side, but we're close on a lot of this stuff now. This is a very short-term piece of an initiative, more in the 1 to 3 months range, not a 6 to 12, for example.
Yes, and to continue on that, legal and OEEO, we've given ourselves to Monday to kind of give the final edits to this and updates to this, and give it a go. So hopefully it meets Ann's watchful eye, and we can move this forward. But yes, we are in a good state of readiness to move this small business spend plan policy forward. Second is development and implementation of Metropolitan Council Small Business Program. Again, this is what you see here is kind of some of the ways that Hennepin County has developed a small business program based on size and other factors that are not specific to race or gender. but also gives you more flexibility in how you can operate your programs. And something that we feel very strongly about that can make a difference. And just in terms of readiness, in terms of a draft, again, that we'll be working and reviewing with OGC, our legal counsel. August, sometime mid-August, we'll be ready to provide that to our legal counsel. Next is council bid board and direct solicitation. We heard a lot of times through the studies that we conducted, and you saw some of the anecdotal stuff that was referenced both in the Keene study and in the small business equity audit, how to connect outside of construction and some of the services. There's not a lot of ways and information on how small businesses can connect what they do to council opportunities. And yes, we have tools where they can sign up for different things. But again, when you think about 16 agencies participated in this study, that would mean they'd have to sign up with 16 different agencies. Fortunate for us, all the participants in this disparity study, the Department of Admin has secured software where all agencies can post their opportunities. There's not a cost to the user or the agency. Let me add the caveat. If we wanted to just type in our opportunities into the system, it would be no cost. But
we don't, so is there a cost?
Yes, there's a nominal fee, a very nominal fee to create that automatic transfer. Jody and her team are taking the leadership on this one and have been working and communicating with the folks at admin and laying out the groundwork in terms of how this will work. Training for staff, for our staff and other staff, is going to begin next month in August. I'll be participating. I'm sure Jody's staff as well will be participating in those sessions as well. Dedicated funding for continued administration of the council supportive, I can't talk today, I don't know why, supportive services program. Again, we did receive, thankfully, from this body, one-time funding to operate supportive services. Again, focusing on a lot of the questions you had, building capacity, relationships, training, technical assistance, access to resources. Hennepin County also has they call it their Elevate Hennepin program. I've spoken at length with those folks, and those funds are going to be running out, so we need dedicated funding to continue this. I always say when I'm invited to talk in some of these spaces, in these regional outreach events, it's our responsibility to create the space for relationships to occur, and hopefully those relationships develop into partnerships, and it manifests itself in our results and our outcomes.
And in terms of the budget side, this is an ongoing conversation right now. There are one of two ways this body might see this come back in the months ahead. One is we're doing a scrape and evaluation of existing Thrive resources unspent, and whether there should be a recommendation to reallocate towards places where we've seen success. And the Thrive implementation funds for new council members would be money put aside to implement MSP Thrive 2040, which is now becoming Imagine 2050, but the core value of how do you implement funds for strategy remains. And so we're evaluating how much funding is left there. Does it make sense to think about leveraging funds from there here? Otherwise, this would be something we'll evaluate through the budget process formally and bring forward that way.
That was going so good.
It's great.
Oh, there we go.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're done.
Where's fun?
There we go. All right. Last but not least, we've also had some conversation around this, strengthening our prompt pay so that we are prompt. and our compliance around the change order process. You know, as part of our anecdotal process and getting direct feedback from small businesses, we have been inviting some of the certified small businesses who have completed their work on Green Line extension to come talk about their experience. This is probably the number one area where they comment. This is always where I get calls and emails and requests for assistance is helping to get paid. So I can't over or understate this as an important priority. Some of these are very, I think, simple and straightforward. And at some point, I hope you can hear, because I do have a recording of one of those sessions that we had with a small business, a woman-owned small business, and it was much more articulate, powerful to hear from her about the challenges on some of these large government projects that these small businesses sometimes participate in. But language to address contractor-initiated change orders, penalties for non-payment. And one of the things that I want to point to is it's a new concept to the United States in this market, which is project bank accounts. Kind of similar, but a lot more sophisticated than trust accounts, but it does provide transparency and efficiency, cost savings for us. But overall, everybody is paid. Everybody knows where the funds are going, and everybody's paid at one time on project bank accounts. In terms of readiness, that last point, the project bank accounts, that's probably the longest term, or we have a lot more work to do in that area in terms of getting us to that place, but it's something that we believe strongly about. We've had conversations with some of our external partners, AGC, small businesses, internally with our staff, legal, finance, and had some of the leading experts come talk, gave us all their contracting documents. So it's something that we are passionate about pursuing. Again, it's not something that I'm going to recommend that we try for the first time on a $1 billion project, but this is something that we think will have a huge impact on the industry. And to the council member's question about, once they have the contract, then what happens and how do we make sure they're successful throughout and in completion of that work?
And to go a little bit deeper on this project bank account, because I had not heard about this before, is this kind of the idea of having, when payments come from approved by the owner, project managers, us, to a general contractor, it'll flow almost seamlessly to the subs right away?
Mr. Chair, that's exactly right. Once we approve it, it goes to a bank, and then the bank, all the payments that goes to the contractors and all the subcontractors are outlined in that payment, and then within 7 to 10 days, that goes out to everyone.
Okay.
And there's the concerns that come up are around what if work wasn't completed or completed in the wrong way. These concerns exist today, we would argue, under existing ways. There are methods to address that, potentially beyond using payment as the only tool for that. And so that's what we're wrestling through right now. But it is an interesting area to think about alongside using the other statutory tools where we might want to become more muscly in how we approach some of this to really ensure prompt payment. That was our last slide, Mr. Chair. I want to appreciate Ashanti's work here. Specifically, I also want to appreciate Jody Jacoby, who is, she was out today, so otherwise she would have been sitting next to Ashanti. She was happy to hand it over to him to be the presenter. The Office of General Counsel has been very close to all this work as well as our finance team as we vetted presentation pieces. The one last thing I would just say is we had to balance bringing this here to you today without a ton of run up in the last month with the idea that we had Keene coming in today. And it was important after a lot of questions from council members on how does this all tie together to move on the end of, we wanted to present it and lay it out, recognizing that some of these are going to engender other questions that we want to work through committees on, we want to keep talking to you about as we go, as opposed to saying, just wait another 3 months and we'll tell you some of the things that we're kicking around. So we accelerated the getting the 5 points ready. We did our best to today. And I think particularly through management committee, there's some opportunity here through your meetings, Councilmember Johnson, to really think about how we could start to bring this in with the team and keep talking about it as we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate having these two reports at the same time, because at one point, it's interesting, we're learning something, what are we doing about it? And this is clearly the result of some work. First, Councilmember Johnson, then Barbara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the comments. Thank you, Ashanti, for your leadership, Jody, of course, and others. It is really awesome to be on the management committee because, thank you, Councilmember Lilligren, for your comments, but our committee is really pressing forward on this. And I think at every meeting, I tell you, you let us know what you need and we will make sure you get it. And we mean that on management, right? Like, I think barrier removal is what we're all about here. And Ashanti, you've done such a good job, your team, getting people in. There are also some really good studies on how we have reached our own goals for disadvantaged, right? Disadvantaged DBE program and things like that are fascinating, and how those numbers are reached and defensible and all of that. So I invite anybody from the council that if you see this on our agenda and you want to come for that item, it's really good stuff that I think, it gives, at least for me, a really good grounding into what's going on, because I can hear all those conversations in my head about what we've been having over the many years. So again, thank you to our team. Thank you for the commitment on behalf of this council. And I would say this, and I often go back to this in management, we also need to make sure that they have the staff to do their job in their departments and in HR, so that when we're hiring on people too, so that other people in the council that are being trained up on procurement and how to make sure that we've got MCUB and DBE contractors coming into the system bidding, we need to have people that are prepped and ready to go all throughout the council that have that authority to get those RFPs out there and let the contracts, right? So it's not just one department that just magically does it all. They are working on making sure the entire system throughout the council understands how they can do that, whether it's maybe even P-card, where it's lower amounts or whatever, I don't know, whatever it all might be. And I really do appreciate, and it's just repetition for all of you, but even just, again, which is one of the, I think, the recommendations here, but been doing this already, is breaking down contracts into smaller parts, those smaller bites that MCUB and DBE have a shot at getting. And, so I'm excited about this. It's tireless work. But there's so much opportunity here, and I just want to thank you again for keeping the management committee clued in. And I think, again, we're making progress, but we will continue to make more.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. And along with, recognizing both Jody and her team, I do have one of my team here who plays a big role. She probably doesn't want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Megan Solberg, she is the manager for our small business contracting unit, and she plays the vital role. I tell her job is to make me look good. So thank you, Megan.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All of this is really exciting to see. I think it's, I come from consulting world, not in the government space, but I know a lot of consultants that honestly don't want to work with government because it's too slow, it's clunky, you don't know where to go. And so when I hear things like debundling some of the scope, having a bid board, helping people with, how to manage dispute resolutions, and the prompt payment piece is really, really critical. The one thing that I think that we need to kind of layer over all of this is anybody who's been in business and gone to work with a particular group or client and it had any kind of a bad experience, they're not going to go back. So how do we go back and talk to or get the message out that, hey, we were listening and we've simplified it. And so I think we need to have some sort of communication plan that goes with all of this so that, that we're a very welcoming organization for small business. I think when you see some of the groups, like with the disparity study, I can see where, like, if you have one bad experience, and consultants and businesses, we talk to each other. So, like, if you run into any problems, you're not going back. So, like, we have to refresh the message and go out and say, no, we're listening. We can do this better.
Thank you, council member, for saying that.
And Councilmember Lilligren, but we're going to get back. You had your hand up.
Yeah, please.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Councilmember Barber, for saying that. That's almost exactly what I was going to say, and really lift up what Councilmember Chambliss was saying. This on this slide, the prompt payment and even that working capital is a huge barrier. I hear it all the time. In my world, there were a lot of nodding heads upon this DS when you were going through this recommendation, and I was going to say the exact words: contractors, small business owners talk to each other, right? And so we're already starting from a deficit, right? We need to somehow figure out how to address that and bridge that barrier. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is on the first recommendation, and I was glad you started there, and that's the spend plan policy, right? And the debundling point, and we've talked about this in management committee as well, and that's something that we can do with our contracts, debundling them, making them smaller contracts, more accessible to a broader range of bidders. And I would just go back to my early experience on the Minneapolis City Council. The first big project I faced was the then Sears building, now the Midtown Exchange. And we didn't have a ton of authorities to make a developer debundle, but we could build into the RFP, it was a city-owned property, the incentives to engage with developers in a conversation about making their subcontracts more available. And so the prevailing contractor was Ryan Companies, and they were really interested in diversifying their subcontractor platform. And so they did a lot of social stuff with, convening with potential minority-owned businesses, and they came upon this themselves, that debundling a large contract, it was just bookkeeping for them, right? It wasn't a huge financial lift at all. And so I know that works, and I'd love to see how we implement it as a agency. But also the thought came to me that as we're looking for metrics here, there is a part where we can influence, but we don't necessarily have control over. That's an example of the Midtown Exchange project, where the lead contractor chose to debundle large contracts. And so I don't know if there's a metric in there somewhere where, it's not totally in our control, but there may be ways to either incentivize it or encourage it, and then to possibly track it. I don't know. I'm not being super specific here, but I know that, this isn't fully baked, and I kind of like the ambiguity that it's coming forward with. So that's my idea, suggestion, whatever. I'll think more about it. Happy to engage. And I really like that we brought this small business program presentation forward with the disparity study, even though, there wasn't, it was kind of interestingly paced. And it reminds me, in Community Development Committee this cycle, we had a Livable Communities program update and briefing, and the staff presented what they called a 50% draft, right? And so again, it's not fully baked, it's a little ambiguous, which I think is fine at this level. It gives us the opportunity to really dig in, and I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. So I like this approach, so thank you. Thanks, Mr.
Great, thank you. I'm going to just shift to the left side of the room.
East side, East Metro.
I've been accused of being a little bit too East Metro-centric. I know you're not these. Councilmember Chai, Lee, yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. These are two great presentations. This comment is mainly for the first presentation. I don't have a JD, but I don't know how anyone could attack or challenge what we're doing with our programs, especially regarding MCUB. The I in DEI is for inclusion, and that's supposed to address decades and hundreds of years of systematic oppression. When the GI Bill came out, it was supposed to allow returning GIs from World War II to buy houses, but we know that through local control, racist mayors and real estate agents did not allow black GIs to buy in certain areas, and what we now call redlining. The founding constitution of Oregon has had a clause in there that says that if you're black, you better not be found outside in the town when the sun goes down. And that law was not struck from the Constitution until the 1980s. And so these programs and practices are addressing hundreds of years of injustices. And so I'm glad and proud that we continue to stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Councilmember Morales.
Thank you, Chair. One of the comments I have in regards to the access to capital, in the Investment Review Committee, we invest CDs in multiple small banks. And we're talking about reaching out to the leadership, reaching out to everybody that we have here in the Met Council. If we start aligning where our CDs are being invested into certain banks, that actually helps SBEs or help MBEs grow their lines of credit, that'll help us at the exact same time. And then with the debundling, have we looked into debundling the material also from certain scopes, because that will affect their line of credit when it comes to doing that? Goes basically to the same thing of the project bank account, right? If we are directly paying for the material, the supplies, that helps ease the burden on these SBEs, MBEs, WBEs that are doing this work. I also wanted to know, are we working with any bonding companies that specifically help MBEs and WBEs grow their bonding capacity? Because that'd be great to have, because I'm pretty sure you know there's not many bonding companies here in the state or even nationwide that specifically work on helping build up the bonds, right? But we need to look into the bonding companies that are specifically working with them, so that way when we have a contractor that says, well, I don't have the bonding capacity for this project, well, let me guide you in the right direction of a bonding company that will work with you to help grow your bonding capacity so you can bid on a project like this.
Chair Zelli, Councilmember Morales. The short answer is yes, and we work with our regional partners like MnDOT and others to bring bonding training and access, where we have surety companies come and talk to our small businesses, our certified small businesses. I want to try and recall when the last one we did was. It might have been last year, 2024. But yes, that is something that we know is a barrier or can be a barrier. And we do try to work with our other partners to bring that sort of information and training to our small businesses. And one of the other things that you mentioned, I think, is to Councilmember Lilligren's point about how we use our influence and how we can use our influence, not only with our financial institutions, but at some point, if we move forward the project bank accounts, we're going to have to leverage some of those relationships to assist us in that process as well. So definitely a point well taken.
Yeah, great. And Councilmember Carter,
I just wanted to thank you for two great presentations. As a former contract specialist and a small business owner, I can appreciate the harm that's done on slow pay under a subcontract. And so I really like the idea of the project bank accounts, and we can get clarity and speed. That would be a wonderful thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Pacheco.
Mr. Chair, members here. First of all, Ashanti is our featured member of the Equity Advisory Committee on a regular basis. He's all called back and then comes back the next week or next year or month, whatever it is there.
Either next week.
I know it'll be there. And I think what I like about what your presentation today is that, we only meet like once a year or once a month, excuse me, and then we have some other things to add into that. But it's very succinct, and I think it's something that they can grasp right away and really see themselves in this discussion here. And in my day job with the Latino Chamber here, I think there's a lot with the studies that I'm going to be taking back to look at how we can also leverage our abilities and our resources, because I think there's it's kind of like a middleman, if you will, with the both government and corporations and smaller businesses. So this is very helpful to me as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say one thing.
Sure.
I want to appreciate Councilmember Pacheco particularly on this topic. As this first report came to the EAC, I think almost every Wednesday we've had a short planning, we'll call it a planning conversation for today related to this topic, as we tried to hone from just a lot of data coming in to where we've gotten to today. And to get more specific on what are the next steps. And you were very helpful in, now, yeah, this is great to have 173 next steps, but like, what are the steps? What are the steps? And realizing like, let's not let perfection be the enemy of the good in moving forward. So I just wanted to acknowledge you've been strongly advocating through the EEC work, but to bring it back here and through your chamber experience as well. And I kind of think that kind of happened in the shadows, and I wanted to give you credit for it.
Yep.
Yeah. Councilmember Chambliss.
Well, I think there's a lot of agreement amongst the council members about support for many of these recommendations, including the Project Bank account. While we may not be able to adopt the whole Project Bank account guidebook steps, maybe parts of it can be adopted, setting up ACH payment systems and things like that. I did have one question about the MCUB directory update. You didn't mention a whole lot about that, but it looks like you wanted to shift to a business to, I don't know what the G stands for, B2G Now system?
Sure. Chair Zelli, Councilmember Chambliss. So the council owns and administers two small business directories. One is on behalf of and in collaboration and coordination with our Minnesota Unified Certification Program partners, MNUCP. So that's us, MnDOT, Metropolitan Airports Commission, City of Minneapolis, for our federal DB program. The council owns and administers that. The MNUCP, and we actually just had a meeting today, decided to go to a new certification portal under B2G Now. The Minnesota Department of Transportation is covering the initial costs and setup, and also the first year transaction costs for each of the agencies. And part of our recommendation is to also switch our local small business directory, MCUB directory, to B2G Now as well, because it would save us resources and other gains to do them both. Right now, Megan's team bring in the CERT programs every 2 weeks. There's an individual that has to manually key in those firms. It is, of course, human error is great. As that staff person is, that brings in the opportunity for human error. And then also in terms of what our directory can handle now, if we're looking at implementing a small business program, to be able to, for businesses and whoever is looking for certified small businesses, to be able to search by size and other factors, as opposed to us taking on that risk and that resource, will be critical. So that is part of the ask. Thank you for asking that, because I didn't go into a lot of detail about that. So thank you.
Hi, Ashanti. I feel like I'm in one of these marathon movies where it's a big loop, and I kind of like, oh, this is where I came in. Because 14 years ago, about 3 weeks before I became commissioner at MnDOT, Kevin Lindsay takes me to lunch and he says, we've got to talk about the certification portals to bring in MCUBs and DBEs together. And I thought, what is he talking about? I'm proud to say I know what he's talking about, but we're still talking about the process of actually getting a portal for some of the certification programs. And so I really appreciate what you're doing and making something more, which has been a struggle for many years, more actionable. Speaking of which, I'm going to go do a little, because I follow Ashanti around. At MnDOT, we had some, besides the prime contractors and these billion-dollar projects, we found actually not even just unbundling other projects, even just doing maintenance contracts. I mean, we're doing road signage, smaller projects that are part of our everyday program. And do we work with Met Transit and maybe even environmental services toward smaller maintenance projects that could be good MCUB or DBE or maybe income projects?
Chair Zelli, again, another great question. Yes, and specifically with Metro Transit, our engagement and development staff have been working with folks in the maintenance, shelter cleanup, what am I trying to, snow removal, other things, maybe Megan can help me out. And, a lot of their staff are fully engaged, and they're saying we could do 100% MCUB on some of these things. I'm like, okay, yeah, great. So the answer is yes, and I think there's even more opportunities to do that more.
Great. And it gets back to who's talking about leadership. It's really taking the people who care about it and take the initiative on the project base. Yeah, great. Yeah, Councilmember Johnson.
And just briefly, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing up Elevate Hennepin at our chamber. We're trying to incorporate that in for our small businesses and have them out and talk about the things in partnership with our cities in the West Metro. But if we can, it's obvious, but getting those kinds of support systems around those businesses, it's not only getting them contracts, but it's helping them to grow their business and getting the support systems around that they need. Because a small business owner, as they're starting out and growing their business, they don't have the fractional leadership that they need, where it might be finance or legal or marketing or whatever it might be. They're wearing all those hats, and that can also be a big detriment to helping them get to that next level. So I applaud Elevate Hennepin and whatever programs are happening elsewhere throughout the region and state, and the fact that we're trying to dovetail into that is really good, because they've got a bunch of small business owners that fit our criteria. And so to get connected with those, and actually I even mentioned it at one of our chamber meetings to the person that spoke with us from Elevate Hennepin, and then the Minnesota Consortium of Community Developers too. And it was my day job, but I wear my Met Council hat every now and then. I go, hey, I'm a Met Council member and I'm under management, and how do we make sure that these people are finding out about us? So it's great, obviously, to know our staff is reaching into those groups that are helping provide the supports, the funding, the grants that our businesses need, but then getting them really dialed in to getting, the funds that will take them to the next level so that they can eventually grow and hone in on their area of expertise and not have to be, knowing everything. That's such a hindrance to business growth, and I hear it all the time from our small businesses.
Well, Shanti, I want to just leave it, appreciate your coming up and do the presentation. I think Jody would be very pleased, and as we are, and Ryan, your help. I don't want to shortchange the opportunity for a little reception. Turns out we have some cupcakes in the lobby, and we are honoring 2 new council members, as well as a rotating off. Once a council member, always a council member, Bento. But since we're here and we've sworn you in, I want to give both of you a chance, Councilmember Jenkins and Councilmember Obi-Shakin. Do you want to just say just a couple of words? Since now you've joined us, you've listened to it. It's too late now. You signed up.
You go first.
Oh, I'll go first. Now, thank you, Chair. Thank you, council members. As many of you know, I didn't get here alone. I leaned on council and talked to many of you, followed you online, followed you from the back of the room, and yet I still came in, and I'm happy to be part of the council, and I look forward to working with all of you and all of the wisdom that you've shared with me, and all of the wisdom I'm still going to learn over the next however long it takes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, council members. Ryan, thanks for the meeting today. It was awesome. I would love to name you all, but some of you have been very instrumental for me getting here. Before I get back to you, there's some people in the crowd that I have to say thank you to. If not for them, never knew about the Met Council, but they approached me and said, hey, I think you'd be a great fit. One of them is right there, my council member, city council member, Lisa Ain't right there, who's here, who actually came. I know Representative Clarity wanted to come, but she was another who said you should do this. I think you'd be a great fit. And of course, my wife and family. And another great woman who said, hey, you know, if this is what you want to do, go ahead and supporting me, which is my boss, sitting right behind them, Dr. Ola, who said, you know what, go for it, follow your dream. So I'm glad she's here. Thank you for coming. And a great friend, meu amigo, muito obrigado, right down there, Mr. Dion, who came to support me. So thank you very much. So, of course, Sam, wonderful staff here, folks. It's been amazing. So, as some of you council members, Councilmember Charlie, who's also my manager for BCLI, great support, great guy. You know, I want to thank you, Councilmember Osman. Thank you for picking up your phone call and the advice, and I appreciate each and every one of you. So I'm, Councilmember Morales, thank you for picking up the phone call too and giving me great advice. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Good to be here. Nice listening to all of you. Sorry I kept quiet because I'm still learning and my brain is still computing. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you both, and we're so thrilled you're with us. And there's much work ahead, so don't worry about that. Does anybody have any other reports, words? Council.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And this is going sort of to our influence, Met Council's influence in the work that we do. And I recently was invited into a roundtable of local Metro Urban Indian leadership to discuss with the Federal Reserve sort of how to do native development in the urban core. And it was convened by the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, who's the only Federal Reserve in the nation that has a Center for Indian Country Development. And then other representatives from Federal Reserve, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, other communities with large urban Indian populations attended. And one of the documents, the Federal Reserve generated documents we were working from, referenced the 50 different tribes represented in our population here. And we had just before that been talking about visibility, right? And I said, well, through the work that the Met Council has done through our American Indian Advisory Council, we've identified 150 tribes just here in the Metro. And I said, so with just these words, you disappeared 100 tribes from our population. And the person who drafted that document was sitting at the table. And he said, that was me. Now I know. I apologize for doing that. And now I sent him our work, and he said, now I have something to base a more accurate number on. So it's not a really formal kind of thing from what we've done, but it just really demonstrates for me our influence in the work that we do here.
Well, and our influence and our engagement and our learning is a continuous evolutionary process, and we learn as we go. Thank you. Councilmember Barbara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because I did with staff to Montana to spend time with family after the Committee of the Whole, I didn't get a chance to thank all of you and so many of you who showed up coming out to the Committee of the Whole on the road in Chaska. It meant a lot to there were city council members there were different county commissioners. It really meant a lot that a lot of people took the time and came out. So just really want to thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you as a kind host.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. R.A.
No updates, Mr. Chair.
Ms. General Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to stand between people and their cupcakes, but I did want to acknowledge this. The small business work is very complex, and strict scrutiny really gets our attention. We're very lucky to have Patrick Lee O'Halloran. He's been taking the laboring oar for the Office of General Counsel. He has 20 years of construction law experience and the perspective of having represented subcontractors a lot. So we have many spirited debates, and he has a very different perspective, which I think is really useful as we approach this work of not just looking at, what can we do, but is that actually going to get us the result that we're looking for? And I know Jody wasn't here today to acknowledge Auburn D's, but Auburn has been instrumental in this work as well. That disparity study is a lot of work on staff. It's not just a lot of consultant work. And so they've done a great job with that. And I wanted to raise them up. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you both. Thank everybody here. Did I mention cupcakes? I think this meeting's adjourned.